So we're now on to 3D Part E. So before we go any further, I'm going to save my database as a new file name. So it's always important to do this, and we can always go back then to previous versions. So this is now 3E. So the idea of this is that we have a form, and we can fill in the form with a date and time that we want a lesson to take place. Then we can have a combo box, drop-down boxes for instructor, car and learner, so we can select who the instructor will be, which car and which learner, and it will then book those lessons for us. Now we're just going to start with the creation of the basic form. Okay, so we've got to show evidence of a booking form and each of the drop-down boxes being used. So we'll create a form, and we'll just go for a blank form design as we've done before. If we go back to our Find Instructors form, we can copy and paste that title, which means that we will keep a house style across the whole thing, and it says that it should be called Book Lesson. So we'll put that in. And the first thing that we need to do is have an input for the date of lessons. So I'm going to put a text box here. Okay, this will be for our date of the lesson. So we'll call that date of lesson. Now if I change this format to a date, it doesn't matter which date we go for, we'll just choose short date for now, then it will recognise dates, but also it will give us this date picker by the side, which can be quite convenient. The next thing to do is put in our time slots. Now our time slots were defined earlier, so we can create a combo box that will allow us to select which time slots we're going to include. So what we'll do is we'll come along here, put a combo box in, and we're going to type the values in. Now it may be that when you created your lesson table that you also created a lookup table for the start times. If you did, that's fine. You can now go on and choose this to get the combo box to get the values from another table. But I'm going to type them in. Okay, so the start times that we're given are 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, with 9:30, 11 o'clock, 12:30, 1600, 17:30 and 1900. We'll give it a name, okay, so we can give this something like the time slot start, and we'll finish. There we go, it's put that time in for us. If we test what we've got so far, we've got our date and we've got a time. And we can't book a lesson until we've got our combo boxes that will allow us to select an instructor, a car and a learner. So we're going to create a combo box now for the instructor, and we're going to select this option this time because we want to select the values from the instructor table. There's the instructor table. We definitely need the ID because it's the ID that will be the foreign key that gets stored in the lesson table. And I think forename and surname are good enough. Date of birth, perhaps if you had two instructors with the same forename and surname, but that should be sufficient for our needs. In terms of an order, we'll go by surname, and if we've got the same surname, we'll go by forename. There's our data. Okay, what do we want to call it? We want to call it instructor, or we could even put select instructor. There we go, so that's our instructor done. We're now going to do the same for the combo boxes for the car and for the learner. So we'll do the car, we'll look it up in a table, we need the ID, and then I think the registration and model are probably enough, or maybe transmission as well actually. I won't bother with a sort order for this one because there's only a small amount of data. Now notice we're hiding the key column. That's because this ID, it's only used as a primary key and then a foreign key in the other table. It's only used in the database structure. Our user doesn't need to know about that primary key. So there, we'll call this car and finish. One more drop down box to do, and that is going to be for the learner. So we can look up in another table, learner, certainly need the ID, forename, surname, and I'm going to go for postcode in case we've got two learners with the same name, because that's very possible. And we'll order them by surname and forename. Hide that key column again, and we'll call this learner. Click on finish. Let's have a look at this so far, and it looks like it's working. That's great. Now if we look at the question, we haven't finished yet. Okay, it says show evidence of a booking form and each of the drop down boxes being used. So you need to do a screenshot of that, screenshot of this, screenshot of this one, and a screenshot of this one. In the real coursework you'd need to annotate those as well, and it might be worth in the real coursework showing a screenshot of how you set up each of them. Finally, we need this button. Okay, the button is going to be to check the booking. So if we go back to design view, we'll put a button on here, okay, and we'll just cancel out so it doesn't do anything at the moment. We're going to get it to run a macro later on. You could create the blank macro at this stage, so you could create a macro called what are we going to call it? The booking form is going to be called check booking. And in fact, what we'll do is we'll do that now, and then you've got it for later. So if we go to create macro, and we don't want it to do anything, just leave it to do nothing, and we'll call this check booking. So that's our macro. And on our form, I haven't saved my form yet, I ought to have saved it. Book lesson. I'm going to create that button. Go back to the design tab, put the button on here that's just going to run a blank macro. We go to miscellaneous, run macro, run this check booking macro. Text has got to be check booking, and I'm going to call it button underscore check booking. That's just so that if you do use any Visual Basic code, it can be recognised easily. There we go. We can actually delete all this data for our screenshot. We don't have to have any data in there. It doesn't say about putting any data in. So we would do a screenshot that would cover from the bottom here all the way up to there and show the evidence of that. Now I know that we haven't named these yet. We're going to do the naming of those later when we show certain evidence. So this is just the form for 3E Part 1.